Hello, everyone. Derek Floyd here. Beautiful Now Podcast. Welcome to another edition of Chasing the Impossible. This is the segment where I interview special guests who happen to have accomplished seemingly impossible things in their journey to let you know no matter how far your dream may seem, how impossible it may look to reach, if they can accomplish their dream, guess what? You can accomplish yours too. And as always, if you enjoy the content you see here, do me a favor, stop, pause right now, and hit me with a like or subscribe to the channel. This lets me get the most updated content to you as soon as it's available. And always, most importantly, if you really enjoy the content you see here, share with a friend. This lets me help everybody stay uplifted, encouraged, and live inspired. Now, today's special guest is a friend of mine who happens to have worked with some of the biggest music artists in the industry. People like the Rolling Stones, Aretha Franklin, Duran Duran, Jay-Z, Timbaland, Justin Timberlake, and that's just to name a few. And his job is actually the one that makes the sonically things sound better. He's the engineer or producer. And then when you listen to these great tracks, you think, oh, they sound so amazing. You're so excited to hear them, and the songs are great. If there's a person behind the scenes that makes them sonically come alive to you, and that's the engineer. And that's my friend's job as an engineer producer, is to make those tracks sound amazing. And he's been all around the world doing it for over 4 decades. So will you please help me welcome one of the best in the game, our good friend, Mr. Jimmy Douglas. Jimmy, are you there today, brother? Talk to me.
I'm here. Welcome, Jimmy. Welcome. Welcome.
Where he is. There he is. Man, what's good, brother?
Everything is good. Everything is good. Every day is a good day.
Come on now. That's the way we do it. It felt like I haven't seen you in forever. What's been going on? Like pandemic crazy? I mean, you've been traveling, doing so many things. What's been going on?
I mean, pandemic crazy, just kind of staying put in Miami a lot. Go to LA every now and then, trying to just keep my fingers on the pulse a little bit and trying to stay out of the way of the vid. You know what I'm saying?
I want to thank you for being here, taking some time just to talk to the subscribers. I mean, you know, you've been a legend for so long, and you've been a good friend of mine and somebody I really admire and respect. And, you know, to talk to you about your story and share to others how they can, you know, take their impossible and make it happen. It's kind of cool. So I just appreciate you just spending a few minutes to do that, man. So let's just go ahead and dive like right in, you know, because most people that's watching this know exactly who you are. This is the senator. This is the man who's been doing it behind the boards for over 4 decades, man. Can you imagine that? Does it feel like 4 decades?
Can you imagine that?
Does it feel like 40 years at this game?
I mean, it does. It feels like life, man. And I've been very blessed to be a part of some greatness in this life. And I guess, you know, sometimes I say to people, I guess looking back, I guess I'm pretty good at it. But to me, you know, it's just every day you wake up, you do your best. And that's it. And, you know, you put your foot forward and you go forward, take what comes to you, do the best you can at it. And hopefully, you know, 40 years later, you can still be sitting there.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know the answer, really.
Well, man, let's dive into a little bit of your story, man. Let me take up my notes here. You started your path to being an engineer in high school. Now, right, that's when you kind of get it on. So what intrigued you about getting behind the board in high school?
It wasn't the intrigue of the board. You know, it was a different time. It was a different era. And like now, this whole process is glorified. Recording engineer, all of it, producer, it's all glorified. When I was a kid in high school, you didn't even know what the hell it was. You had no idea how records were made. You just heard them on the radio. And for me, I could play everything. I was a good player, and I was in these bands and stuff. But what I really wanted to be was an architect.
Really?
That was my true love. Yes, absolutely.
That's cool, man. I didn't.
And I think
that's cool.
I spent all of my high school time taking all those courses to be that.
Wow.
And you know, thing is, my math sucked.
Yeah, you need that in architecture.
Well, both those things were terrible. All the other stuff I was really good at,
Yeah.
I tempted those. So, like, you know, I didn't know it yet because you're a kid, but I wasn't going to be able to get into the schools you need to get to do those things.
Yeah,
And so somewhere along that line, one of the summers, I lived in a very affluent suburb in New York, Great Neck, Kings Point, Long Island. And, you know, everybody has things like, you know, people are architects, so they can give you a job for the summer, that kind of stuff, you know. And there was this one family that was near near where I lived, and they were going to give me a job for the summer, and then they kind of welched out on me. And
Oh, boo.
it really hit me hard because I was so looking forward to being that and getting into that world. I was really good at that as well, very good.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that, and then I ran into in that town as well. There was Jerry Wexler who owned Atlantic Records, and I ran into his his daughter actually, and I met him through her, and his wife just took a liking to me.
Mm.
And she kept saying, "What are you gonna do when you get ready to go to school? You're gonna need a job." And and that's kind of how it was. It was like, Jerry, let him work over there, but it wasn't like to be in the studio. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't
Wow.
focus. It was just simply a job that you can probably use when you go to get ready to go to college.
Wow. Wow. So you just kind of fell into that. So
I kind of fell into that.
wow, chance meeting and you become the great of one of these things that you've done, which is pretty incredible. That's a powerful part of the story. When did you discover you had a knack for it? When did you go, I can do this thing. I'm pretty good at it.
Uh, every time that they threw me into the tank to do something that I was never really trained for,
Mm.
which happened all the time back then because, like I say, they didn't have recording schools. They didn't have all that stuff. You were just in a place, and it was like, "Can you do this?" And you're like, yeah." And then if you pulled it off, you did it. And if you didn't, you don't do it again. They won't let you do it again. It was that kind of
I love it. So you were
atmosphere.
thrown in, and if you got good at it, you just got good at it.
If you were, nobody complained that it didn't happen. There was a one artist. His name is King Curtis,
Hmm.
famous. He did all the arranging, and he was the leader of the band at Atlantic Records. He would do all those arrangements for Aretha and all that stuff. And also the other thing that's really important for me back then was like I was a black kid in the middle of a white man's game. There
Mm-hmm.
weren't black people doing this.
Hmm.
So, a lot of the artists, the Southern soul artists, they would take a kin to me because, like, oh, the little young black kid's coming up. Let's help him out. And the
Mm.
one thing about King Curtis that was interesting was there was this studio downstairs. We called it the dungeon because nobody was ever down there. And it was like it was a makeshift. And it was just a bad experience.
Yeah.
It ended up being Bernard Purdy's, he ended up renting it for a drum studio, for his studio to teach out of. Great drummer. Anyway, but so King would always try to like put me onto a session or something, and because he wanted to help me move up,
Mm.
and every time I would do something really stupid. I don't even remember what I would do, but every time we did a session, I'd do some one dumb thing, and he would just, man, you ain't ready, man. You ain't ready, man.
Oh.
I have to go back and wait in the hallways again for another shot.
You always got to do one thing stupid. Just got to make a mistake somewhere.
There you go.
That, man. Well, I mean, most people that talk about what an engineer does, they just think an engineer sits behind the board and moves faders and kind of tries to get everything balanced. But there's so much more to the job than that, and you know that. In your opinion, what do you really think the engineer's real focus should be, and how has that focus helped you succeed where others have failed?
The role of the engineer, and once again, I will reiterate, I was in a studio owned by a record company, and their whole attitude was totally different. We're like the owners, the bosses, Jerry Wexler, Ahmet Ertegun. These are the guys that found all these great stars
Hmm.
and made all this, money. They basically were like, if you're here, you need to run the stuff. We don't run the stuff. You run the stuff. That's why we hired you. And in terms of like what the engineer did, there was no definition on it. It was just like we're going in and we're going to complete a record. Whatever part you do to fill in for that part, you better be there.
Mm. Mm.
And that's really kind of what it was undefined. Like it's interesting. I learned from the one of the greats, Tom Dowd. He would be like the guy that actually said, hey, put him in the studio. We can use him.
Hmm.
And he's the one who taught me theoretically. But the thing about the way he taught me, he never verbally taught me anything.
Mm. Mm.
You would just sit there, you'd watch him, and you go, okay, I think I figured out how to do this.
Mm.
And that's how they taught you back then. They
Mm.
didn't sit you down now and go, well, what you going to do and do this and do that. It was just like, here you are. You
Yeah.
ready? We got a session. Are you ready? And it's like, you got to remember everything you thought you saw. And now it's you. and now you're the man. And if you fuck up, then you fuck up.
Wow.
Get out.
That's
And
pressure, man. That's pressure.
yeah, and no, I mean that. And you would be fired, or they kick you out. I mean, I've been in many sessions recently with young people and stuff, and they do stuff, and it's really fucked up, and nobody, there's no penalty to pay or anything.
Wow.
Which I think is a sad commentary on the whole process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's got to
yeah.
be something to give that thing in you to make you go to the next level.
Yeah. There's no push. There's no, hey, you blew that, or hey, let's get this fixed. Let's find out why this is wrong. It's just
Right.
gone.
Well, it's also the response. It's like that's on you that this thing fucked up, and it's your fault, and you have to take responsibility for it. And they don't, because nobody says anything, so they go on like it's not a big deal.
And they don't become the best they could be because no one's correcting the mistake.
That's what I'm saying. They're not being held responsible for their work.
Yeah.
And like I said, what was interesting about my thing was more like these older people trusted me, and my whole mindset was like, I will never let you down, guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I will never let you down. And that's really where I was coming from. I wasn't coming from any other place of trying to be anything. I was just trying to, honor my debt, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me a shot, and I'm, never disappoint you. That will never happen.
That's what you wanted. That was your main focus, is just not to disappoint. That was
Right.
it. But now that you've
Right.
grown into yourself as an engineer / producer, are there things that you want other engineers to be able to focus on when they come in the room? Like, are there tips that you say, make sure you got to do 1, 2, and 3 when you walk in the door? All that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
It's funny for me. That whole thing revolves more not about the technical side of this thing, which has totally changed from when I first walked in the door.
Sure.
But it's really more about respecting the people and the talent that you're working with. That, to me, if you can do that, the rest of it should probably fall into place. You know what I'm saying?
Help me out. Come on, you guys, engineers watching this, check it out. He said, respect the artist you're working with, respecting the team you work with. Everything else should fall into place, but come in and respect that artist. Give him his due. Do your job. Do it right. Don't skimp.
You got to know some stuff. I mean, come on. Look, there's too much information available now on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, doing all this stuff that you shouldn't know something. But I just meant that other thing. It's like, sometimes we work with artists that aren't so great. Sometimes we work with artists that are amazing. They're genius level.
Sure.
Been on both sides of the spectrum, and what's really hard is when, you've worked with, the greater people. It's hard to, like I said, respect people that really are just working their way and trying to find their way up. I always put a hand out and try to say, let me elevate you. Let me show you what I know. Get you to come up to that level that we can all grow together. That, you know what I mean? That maybe we can both be standing on the podium together getting that Grammy.
See, that was what I was looking for. See, that was one tip that you brought up. You said, I reach back to elevate. I'm not here to put nobody down. I'm here to respect you and elevate you to the next level so we can all be there. If you come in with that attitude, that changes the whole game, changes the whole session, because you're coming in to push forward, to bring something positive to the team. That's a big thing. It's a big marker. A lot of folks come in, they just want to be the man. They don't want to come in. You see what I'm saying?
You don't have to tell me.
And see, you're not coming like that. You're saying, I want to be part of the team. I want to help bring this thing to the next level. And you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there, because you had to back in the day. When you were at the studio, they said, just get it done. You didn't really know what was going to go out. You got to just do what was needed, right?
That's absolutely right. And one of the things that I find today, life has changed, and this whole studio process is different. You can sit at home on your laptop and so forth, and do all this stuff. But
okay.
So one of the things I find today, that's really interesting and different from the days before. I understand that you don't have to really sit in the studio and learn all this stuff. Like I was explaining how I learned stuff. I learned from just being there and watching and being ready to take my turn when it came. Trying to find people to help me. One of the big problems I find right now is, because there's so much knowledge available to, all the young heads and stuff, and everybody wants to be the man right away, that they don't really want to sit and watch my process. They just want to figure out, how can I get in your chair right away? And my thing is like, if you sit here and help me do what I need to do, I will be glad to give you this chair. I want you to have this chair. I don't want to sit here working. I want you to be the man. I want you to be the man covering my butt. You know what I'm saying? And that moment will come because I get, too much or whatever. But like they're very impatient. They want it now. They want to just be the man now. They want to make the beats and stuff. And it's like, you'll get a chance to make beats. Trust me, that day will come when you're working with somebody mixing or doing vocals and they just need an extra beat and you happen to have it. That day will come. But you want it to be now.
Microwave.
And it doesn't work that way. I can't sell you to people that are doing things and go, well, here's another person that's really got some good. This is not what they came for. They came to do them. And if you just take the time and be patient and watch them do them will become a part of you. And before you know it, there you'll be sitting. And that's a true story. I can't really focus any better than that. I know it sounds like poppycock, but
and I hear you
true.
saying more and more, it's all about the process. You need to sit and watch the process. You need to be involved and follow what I'm doing, watch what's happening, and learn the process. So when you're called upon, you're ready.
That's it. That's it. And the thing is, I work with a lot of kids that go to school. And older people, they go to the schools and stuff, which is great. I mean, I love the information that's being settled down. Sure. I didn't go to a school. And the other thing that's interesting, I try to explain this, nobody really understands. When it comes to software, they keep changing shit all the time.
All the time.
It's not like you have a big board and you learn it and you're going to keep it for 5-10 years. And no, they have another version of something. And in the case of Pro Tools and even Logic and all of them, they kept changing their stuff. Every version, they would change it. And they put the stuff in different places. And if you're working, which is what I was doing, I didn't have the time to go back and read every time where they put all the new stuff. I already know how to work it. Yeah. So I'm kind of slow, whereas the kid that went to school, he was taught the newest version. Sure. And let me tell you, I can watch people in the room where I make them so mad. Right? Because I'll do stuff without the short key. I'll take my time. I'm not in a hurry. Where am I in a hurry? Just because I'm fast. What does that mean? Fast to do what? Doesn't sound like anything, as Ray Charles says. But what does it sound like? And they'll stop me in the middle and go, you can do this and do that with that. I'm like, yeah, I do know that, but you know what? I'm cool. I'm good. Can I just do my way, please? And can you maybe look at me? Because one day you're going to have a machine that's not going to use the short key, and you won't even know how and why you're getting there. It's true. So, it's true. You know it.
And they're trying to show off in front of you to be the man.
Bingo.
And you're like, look, all I want to do is get this mix done. I know where I'm looking for. I don't care about the short key. I don't care if I can do this and the other thing. All I want to know is, how does it sound? Did I get compression right? Is the limiter hitting off? That's all I want to know. You tell me all that later.
And can we go home now?
Can we go home now? I tell you, man, you began to make a name for yourself as this engineer thing in the 80s. You were killing it, and working with everybody on the planet. So I won't even make a list, but you know who they are. And you switched hats somewhere in there, and you started going for the record producer side. Tell me what moved you to that direction actually, and why.
No, that never really happened. No? What happened was, from day one, I'm trying to explain to you. So Atlantic, they would have a lot of kids that would have demos. Right? And they had a studio. The thing was, having a studio back in those days was no minor feat.
Sure.
You had to buy a big board. You was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to have this. Nobody could have it at home. So that's why you had to go through that door. Always. Right?
Yeah.
So Atlantic had droves of people coming through their door. We want to make a demo. So what would they do? That's how I cut my teeth, being that guy. But when they came in to do the demo, there was no quote-unquote producer. There was nobody that knew anything about the room. They'd never been in a room. I know something. I've been working with the people, so I basically take over the session, and I basically guide them, and that is actually producing. Right? And so the definition of production, which has changed so much,
completely.
It's not necessarily making the beat. It's like, it's the person, like Jerry Works on Alman Erdogan. They played nothing. What did they play? They played the desk. They had the check, and they got the arranger who knew how to get the musician to get to the people to put the things together to make the music.
There it is.
And they were the producers. Right. So it's not a physical thing. It's a situation. The producer is the guy who really, to me, is in charge and really has the last say. He's like the director of a movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the pieces should fall together this way. That's what a producer is. Just because you go on Fruity Loops and you make a little beat, I'm not putting anybody down, by the way,
Yeah.
and you make a little beat and you give it to somebody to do vocal arrangements. Quite honestly, most of the time, I think the vocal arrangements and stuff make the song more than the beat does.
Come on now.
And that's where the hit comes from. So to me, a lot of the writers are actually producers, but then we're not calling it that. We're calling them writers. But,
Sure.
It's a big. So when you say when it changed over, what happened was a group came in that was about to make, whatever. Well, no, there was a couple of groups in the 70s that did Black Heat from the South, Slave.
Mm-hmm.
And they walked in the door and they were kids in high school. And actually, I was the one who convinced Henry Allen to sign them. And he was like, "Okay, well, can you fix it?" And I was like, "Yeah, bring them here to New York." And they were from Dayton, Ohio.
My home. I was about to say my hometown, Dayton, Ohio. Slave, buddy, because I'm from Dayton.
You know about the funk, man.
And Slave
all
was,
about the funk.
I mean, Dayton had the home of the funk. We had Slave, we had Heat Wave, we had Roger featuring Zapp. We had, come on, I can go on because we had the home of the funk.
And Ohio players, come on, you know what I mean?
Ohio players, don't act up. Come on.
Right, so they walked in the door, man. They were like 16 years old, and they were young kids, and they kind of had something. What they had was the basic, with Mark Adams, the bass and all that. They had all that going on. They just didn't know how to put it together, and that's what I did. I came in and we revamped everything they had started, and we put it together, and we ended up with right out of the box with the platinum album.
Yeah,
and I wasn't labeled as producer on that,
but you were.
Well, but I was, yes. And the guy who was the producer, he found them, and he was the producer, and I actually threw him out of the studio because he didn't really know what he was doing.
Wow.
And we were doing some stuff, and I kept saying, "You need to." I was a very arrogant little young.
Not you, Jimmy.
Because I knew what I knew, and I was just like, "Look, you need to get out of here because you know what you're talking about." And I really did. And we ended with a platinum record, which was great for all of them. And the next record, he didn't use me.
Oh, wow. But you got the platinum record when you left.
Well, no. I mean, bigger pictures. I want to be on the next album. Come on, that's how you make your bones, by setting something up and staying with it down the line as they grow and get bigger. But so I wasn't that. And then eventually, 2 albums in, it wasn't really happening for them. Mm-hmm. And the guy that I told to sign from Cotillion, he says, "You got to help me, Jimmy. You got to help me." And I was like, "I don't want to do it." I had a little feelings. I'm a young kid. I got
you had your feelings hurt. You like
So I came back and I said, "Well, you know what? I'll help them fix this album if you let me cut 3 of my own."
Nice.
And I'm just saying, but that was that moment. It's like, okay, so there's no question that you are the producer because you're creating this. Mm-hmm. And that's when that kind of would have happened for me. It's a matter of getting the proper person with the proper recognition that says, yes, he's the guy, as opposed to you're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
When you come to the studio with Jimmy Douglas, I do have this one saying.
Yeah. You
will never make a record again in your life the same way.
It's true.
Because I don't know how to shut up.
I think what's unique about your story so far is that everything you kind of fell into, and you were naturally good at it when you got there, but it was out of necessity. You came to be the engineer because somebody had to run that room, and then you found you had to be the producer because someone had to get it done, and you had to accumulate this skill set because it was what had to be done in front of you. It's not like you set out to do it. You just had to accumulate it on the fly. No?
That is it. So, so at Atlantic Records, the good thing, early in the day, I remember this, the staff was very limited, and doing all the audio stuff was like, very limited. It was left to whatever. So there's a guy, Eric Clapton. He had just left the group called The Cream. And they were like, "Jimmy, we need to make this ad for Eric Clapton." And I'm like, I love Eric Clapton. I love The Cream. But I'm like, what? So I was like, oh. So I just sat down with some tape. I took some of his music, did some editing. And then I also did the dubious honor of going, Eric Clapton, he plays, he sings. Eric Clapton on Atlantic Records and Tapes. Boom. And they didn't pay me. They didn't pay me anything for doing that because I worked at the place. Meanwhile,
you did the voiceover for free.
You'll
voiceover
pay
for
people
free.
a lot of money to do that these days. So that's what I'm saying. They just stuck stuff on you, and you just
Oh
had to
my
do it.
gosh.
You do it.
Now, see here, we're gonna fast forward just a little bit because now you've done both jobs successfully. You've actually moved into a career as an engineer and producer. And like you said, I tell people, producer is not just making beats. That whole terminology is whack. It's old. And it's not realistic. So you're teaching people the real terminology of producer, someone who crowds everything together, oversees the entire project, puts people in place, makes sure things flow in the studio. All that is more the producer than somebody doing this, but we'll help them out later.
Right.
With you've done, man, Slave, the Rolling Stones, Genesis. Come on, man, you've done some biggie, biggie acts. Which career do you feel like really fits you? Do you like the producer aspect of what you do or the engineer side? Which one fits you best?
I believe that they still are the same thing.
You think?
For me
Mm-hmm.
and for my clients and for when they come to me, what they get is they don't just get a mixer that pushes buttons and does what they say.
Okay,
You
see.
get a producer
Yeah.
that's really kind of doing it. And basically the way that I approach is like, I will try to do what I would do if you weren't here.
Mm.
But if this is that dear to you, your name is on the record as the artist or whatever, or the
Yeah.
producer. So you know what? I defer to you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've done it long enough. Like back in the day, I would fight you tooth and nail for an idea.
Wow.
It was that important to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm fighting for this. And, over the years with success and non-success, I started to realize it doesn't really matter where the idea came from or who did it. It's just got to get done, and it's got to get done that everybody feels good about it. Because if everybody doesn't feel good about it,
Yeah.
that kind of negativity you don't need to attach to the project,
It's true. It's true. It's true.
you know?
That's wisdom,
And
man.
that's something to learn, actually.
That's wisdom on the go though. You had to learn that as you had to walk through the experience of that. And kids
No,
aren't
no,
going to get it right away.
I've done many fights, many nights when I mean, literally, just going back and forth. There's one indie group I had down here. Oh, I'd say maybe about 10 years ago, and they were really cool, and they were just doing stuff kind of really haphazardly. This is one of those days where it was two guys.
Hmm.
One was more zen than the other guy, and the other guy was just so heavy on everything. Everything was just like a big thing. And one day I remember we went to whatever, and I said, "No, you know what? I'm not doing that because I don't really believe that's really what it's going to be really good." And he flipped out on me, and I took him outside and I said, "Listen, this is what I believe could happen and probably should happen. I think that we need to go back inside, and we're both going to be grown-ups, and we're going to finish this record together.
Mm.
And I'm going to give to you. I'm going to give, and you're going to give with me, and we're going to finish a product that we're both going to like." And I said, "That's what needs to happen today. And I think that all it really requires of is you to let go of the baby."
Wow.
That was a moment in time.
That's a
But,
serious moment, bro. That's a
well, yeah, 'cause
moment. And,
they
and
were
it
about to
went,
walk, and it wasn't about the money. It's really, you know what? It's not about the money at that moment. It's more about this music thing is a wonderful thing when it works. It makes all of us feel good. It gives all of us pleasure. And if you're that close, because maybe one of us can't see, maybe we're narrow focused on something that really is not going to make a difference. It's a shame to lose all that for that. And like you said, wisdom I've learned over the years. I was that person back in the day, and I did all that, and it didn't make a difference. And I've learned so it ain't really that. It's about the other stuff.
it's about the other stuff. And the other stuff is so important. We
Very
gloss
important.
over it, but that's the most. And you were so wise when you said, "Let's be grown-ups. Let's go in here and give a take a little bit, and let's produce this record that people are going to like. Let's join together. Let's make this happen." That was the grown-up.
What's interesting was like basically, I was saying let's produce, but I couldn't say that because it wasn't mine to produce. So I was basically saying those exact words, but I made it a feeling instead of, because it without the flown, he would have just been like, "But you're not producing."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I understand that, but this is how I mix. I mix like a producer. I'm sorry."
That's why you're 4 decades in. There you have it. Move the hell on. There you go. So, anyway, you've already proven your records. You don't have to do it again. Speaking of industry records, so notes here: 4 decades. You've worked with some of the best in the world: Aretha Franklin, Rolling Stones, Jay-Z, Duran Duran, just every genre in between. Like, holy crap. Was this the career that you had in mind when you stepped behind the faders, or were you thinking you just do it for a little while and get out? What was your brain going when you first got behind those faders?
Like I said, I was getting ready to go to college. I wasn't really thinking about it at all, you know. And and what's interesting is like, so I always tell this story because it's really the truth. When I first got there and I learned how to do the recording, I would come in before school and after school. They would let me do that, and they would let me play with these 8 tracks in the vault that they had. They were just demos, and these demos, the stuff that was on these demos, I always say this: the stuff that was on these demos that they rejected was better than your best Idol winners, except for the couple of ones that really went on to be great. But in general, when I watch it, I go, "This is not." We're being served an inferior pool of talent. Yeah. Anyway, they would have all these tapes and stuff, and so I teach myself. Like I said, watching Tom Dowd at night. The first album I watched the first album I ever saw mixed was a Dusty in Memphis, Dusty Springfield's great album. And I was like, while I was doing my tape copy, and Tom would be in the back, and nobody be in the studio and the rec company were like stuck together. And I'd go back there while the tapes were copying, and he was mixing this, and I'd watch him. And I watched him to the point where I started understanding what he was doing without him telling me. And then I'd come in the morning, I'd try to do what I saw him do on the board to get it working. So that's the kind of stuff I do. So I found a couple of groups on the street, and this is really the truth of how I got to go from A to B. And I found a couple groups on the street. They were like folk guys, and there were about 3 or 4 of them from Boston. I found them in New York City on the street playing, and I was like, "You guys are sick." And they were like, "Yeah, we're trying to do whatever." I said, "Well, let me make a demo with you. You know, like I have a studio, I got Atlantic Studios." And so I asked Jerry Wexler, I said, "Hey, I got this group to do a demo. Can I do it?" He goes, "Sure." I'm going, "Oh, great. So who's going to engineer it?" And he goes, You want a demo? You do it." And I was like, "Oh, shit. That's not what I had in mind at all. I was going to be the producer."
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's like, "No, you want to do it. You do it." And I did it. And I was still the producer because I'm in charge. And then we did this thing, and then he heard it, and he goes, "That's terrible." And what do you mean terrible? They sound like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And he goes, "Jimmy," and this is another lesson I learned. He goes, "Jimmy, we have Crosby, Stills, and Nash."
Wow.
You know, and to me as a kid, I'm like, it's like what's out there. And he's like, it doesn't work that way. I got the best doing that. Why would I sign somebody that little
sounds
kid?
Like
anyway, that was my lesson.
Wisdom.
I'm like, okay. And then I got another group. They found me from Massachusetts. They came down. They were looking for a deal, and they found me. I don't know how they found me. Same thing. "Hey, can I do this?" "Yeah, you do it." It's a rock band. Shit was great. And we do once again. I played. He goes, "Jimmy, this stuff is terrible."
Wow.
I'm like, "What?"
He would just say that? Like, it's just terrible.
Oh, she played. What? You play my feelings? Business, man. Come on. So, and the thing is, I got it. But then he says, "But Jimmy, both of these things you brought me, they sound really good." And I went like this. Bing. Whoa, like, what do you mean, Jerry? He's like, "They sound really good. Let me talk to Tommy." And da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, it was like, okay, so basically you can't be a producer, quote unquote, like you want to be.
Right.
But we'll let you in the studio to start trying to record. And the thing was, for me, was to be like, okay, I didn't want to be an engineer, because you know what I found out? There was a group called the Young Rascals, and I remember when they were recording they were like on the end of their run when I got there, but they used to be huge. And I walked in the control room, and there was a guy there, and there was a guy there. So Reef Mardine was the producer, and then there was a guy in the chair in the middle, right at the board. His name was Adrian Barber, and then the group was all around, and they had the band members, and they were playing stuff. And every time they would go in, they'd play, then they'd come in the studio, and everybody would circle around the engineer guy. And this was before I really knew how it was working. I was going, that guy over there, everybody seems to talk to him. He must be important. That must be the job to be. But the more I got to be there, I realized that's the guy who never gets the break.
Wow,
because
you
when
didn't think about that. He
right,
never gets a break. He's
he's
always in
he's
the room.
he's always in the room working, even when they're like in between going to the bathroom and stuff. He's
That's
always.
so true.
And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to be that guy.
I never even thought about that. It's so true. The engineer never leaves the room. Everybody goes for a smoke break, go pee, come back. Engineer's still working.
Oh, exactly. He's always doing something. Right, exactly.
Jeez, dude. That's a light bulb moment. That didn't even think about that. Holy crap. Wow. You have done so much, bro. Done so much. And I love the way your story has been woven. Here's an interesting one. You've mixed a ton of records. Do you have a record that you've mixed of yours that's your favorite record you mixed? Like you just think, that's my best work. I loved that record.
I got two records.
Okay.
One's way back in the day, and one's more recent back in the day.
Okay.
But one would be Hole and Oates, She's Gone.
Love that. Love Hall and Oates, man.
Amazing record. And I was a young person, and I'd never touched anything that amazing in my life with the great Aretha Mardine, the late Aretha Mardine, amazing producer.
Yeah.
When you talk about producers, same thing. He and me, we would be stuck there because Tommy Dowd took off and left, and he was kind of running the stuff at Atlantic, and we'd be trying to make the record, and he'd say to me, "But that EQ there, how does it do blah 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 blah?" And I go, "Arif, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just to be in the room." And we would sit there together, and we would go try stuff and go, "Oh, look at that. If you take away 8K, it takes the sibilance away. Oh, well, I know. If you add 8K, the sibilance we were doing stuff like that together." And,
Wow.
and just learning and he's being a great. But the point of that story, that was one record. The other record, I think one of my finer ones is Cry Me a River.
Oh, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it has all the parts and all the modern kind of, all the beginning of modern hip hop anyway. With the orchestra and Tim with all the beatboxing and, it's got the Scott Storch and it's got all these different elements.
And it sounds super spacious when you hear it, but there's a ton going on in that record, but it sounds real wide. You know what I mean?
It's going on in that record. Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
record sonically sounds amazing. Like you put on some headphones. I'd love to hear it in spatial audio now, where you could really hear it. That'd be badass.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
So
I'm actually doing, this goes ahead of your script probably, but I'm doing a spatial audio for Justin Timberlake's the Sexy Back album.
yes.
That's the next one. And what you just described is exactly what happens. There's so much information in those things when I break them out that you don't they meld together well in the record the way that they are.
Right.
But when you hear it broken, it's like, whoa, there's just so much more information. It's really cool. You're going to enjoy that one, by the way.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to hear it. Cannot wait to hear it. Is there anybody that you wanted to work with that you haven't yet? Like it's on your bucket list. I won't die till I work with X.
What's interesting about that? On my bucket list, it's kind of contorted. There's two things. I'm actually looking for not who's out there that I can work with. I would work with all the greats that there are, but I'm just saying what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for that next young energy that can use the guidance that I can give them to do what I really feel the greatest doing, which is having a good time growing with an artist and what they're doing and presenting it to the world where the world goes, whoa,
Wow.
whoa. That's what I'm looking for.
Wow. Hey, but I look at your resume, so to speak, your discography of who you've worked with, and you've worked with just about every genre. You've had Grammys in almost every space. You work with some of the game changers in the industry. From Timberland to Justin Timberlake, Pharrell. I mean, you've worked with so many different people that have changed modern music, and you've been instrumental in that space. So when I hear records out that I know you've done, it's almost, to me, I'm thinking the songs were great, but Jimmy was the structure of the sound I heard. That's when I hear those records they're platinum records, and the song is always awesome. Don't get me wrong, Timberland's amazing, Justin's amazing. I mean, all the records you've done over time, Jay-Z, all of them are amazing. But then when I listen, I'm thinking sonically, this is Jimmy's work.
There's a
So,
thread. I
so
mean,
this is
that's what they all
let's
say. I
just
don't get.
call it how we see it. So that to me means you put your sonic imprint on 4 decades of music, which is a huge blessing. So thank you. It which kind of answers the last question. And again, thank you just for taking the time just to share a little bit of what Jimmy Douglas is about. With so much skin in the game, man, you have done it all. You've accomplished just about everything an engineer could do in the field that you're in and become the producer in both, like you said, wearing both hats, working with so many. What keeps you passionate about staying behind the board? What keeps you going, I just love doing this still?
Well, first of all, I'm not behind the board anymore. None of us are. So that's the
Yeah.
first part.
That's changed. That didn't feel right to say you're not behind the board. That didn't feel right.
I hate to say it, but now you're sitting and playing with the computer all day. And how deep in the well do you want to go? Because there's some people that are awesome. I mean, without a doubt, I just bow and I go, yo, I look at it like this. Had I had these tools when I was younger, I believe I'd be as awesome as a lot of the ones that I say are really awesome. I just know too much to really spend a lot of energy on a lot of little details when I know the bigger chunk is what we talked about. The song, the artist, the person, the circumstance around it. Those are all bigger parts of what's going to seal the deal. But when you happen to have the other guy in the middle that knows all that stuff and knows where to put it, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
you're not gonna beat that.
Yeah, man.
So one of the things that has me passionate is finally having my label, which is, what does that mean? Anybody can have a label, but I mean one that's going to actually work. And
Yeah, please.
I'm trying to put together, quiet is kept between me and you,
Okay.
a compilation of all the things that I've worked on that didn't actually come out across all the years, and basically my record.
That would be fire. That would be fire.
We
Jimmy
hope.
Douglas greatest hits. Come on, dude. That's fire. You got to do it. You have to do it.
I'm doing it. That's what I'm doing.
Have to do it. It's a must do. And it has to have like songs from every genre. You couldn't just stick at one. You'd have to have a little bit of all your flavors. Ooh, dude,
Absolutely.
that's so
Absolutely.
fire. Gotta do it. I'm excited now. So I'm gonna just get a little happy dance so I can see when that comes out. I'll be the first one getting, and I'll buy a copy. I won't do no Spotify nonsense. I will buy a physical copy. We won't even go on that discussion because I'm sad about Spotify and the record industry and all that. It makes me sad that people don't invest in the artists anymore. They go to Spotify and play your record 100,000 times. You get 25 cents instead of you going to the record store and getting the vinyl or at least getting the cassette, or the CD. Now they don't even do that.
Cassette? Where would you play a cassette on?
Yeah, you don't even have a CD player in the car anymore. All you have to plug in your USB port.
They've taken all the CDs away from the
It's like, what do you play it on now? Like, what? You don't even have a CD player? You don't even have a CD player on your computer anymore. Crazy.
No, so I mean they've taken the option away.
Crazy, man. Crazy, man. Well, out of all the things I've heard you talk about tonight and the things that we discussed about being a producer, I think the one thing I want to get everybody to understand, it's all about securing the vibe, making sure what's happening in that room is what's happening in that room for that song. You're all Henny the Business, a good friend of mine, talks about secure the vibe. It's like, make sure the vibe is right. You're getting everybody together. You're making sure that thing is going. Each component is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and the vibe is present. When you sit in a room with Timberland, there's a vibe. It's not just him banging on there's something happening. So you can't go manufacture that. You have to protect it. When you're in the room, I know you protect that vibe. And as a producer, engineer, I think that's what people need to really step up and do, is protect that vibe. What do you think?
I think you're right, and I think that's what producers and all that's what they look for when they come in a room. They look for the creation of that vibe and that security and that feeling and that flush feeling like, wow, I'm welcome here. I'm supported here.
Yeah.
This is a good place for me to be. My ideas are welcome. I'm a contributor. That's what makes people hire people. And of course, the fact that if you're sitting there with a Timberland or, whoever you're sitting there with, a Watt or whatever, it's like, oh, you're working with them. I want to work with you. But
Right.
They're all parts of the same equation, which is everybody wants to feel like everybody wants to feel like they're it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We can all be it. The thing is, there's room for all of us to be it if we just all share.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
I love it. Man, your wisdom has gone forth. I'm gonna watch this video a couple of times, make sure I get it all in, soak it in, just to make sure I remember everything. For all those that are watching out there, man, this is one of the greats, and he didn't give you no BS. He shot you straight. He told you what you got to do. It wasn't rocket science. You know, you got to learn your craft. You got to get in there and watch what's happening. But it wasn't rocket science. He just got better at what he did. He watched, he observed, he did what he was told to do. He was excellent at what he did. You know, these are the simple markers, right? But people are looking for some crazy esoteric, and it's like, nah, man, this isn't it. He just did what he had to get done. Straight ahead. No BS. Seems pretty easy to me.
I'll give you one more analogy
I'll
before we
take it.
go. I had this kid once who was trying to help me, and I asked him to just paint some trim on one of the windows around the studio, not outside, inside though.
Mm-hmm.
And so he you know when you put the tape near the trim so you don't get the wall crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? He put the tape on the trim. And I walked out and I looked and I went, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, no, straight up." And I go,
man.
"I think that's like the opposite way around."
Yeah.
He goes, "No, my uncle did this for his life, and that's how he did it." I went, "I'm pretty sure that's not how he did it."
No.
Okay, but the point of this story was, I went, "I'm gonna have a problem with you because you don't know. It's not about the music and about the plugins and stuff. It's about common sense,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't possess that." And he would do things like that all the time around the studio. I'm going, you can't ever really. I can't put you in charge of the music.
Yeah, man.
You don't have common sense. So I'm just saying, this is what it's really about. It's about having a basic general sense. You know, hey, if there's a set of speakers up there, and then I say one of them is blown, he goes, "Oh, which speaker?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?
You kidding me? You don't know which one's blown? You can't hear
Well,
that right away?"
You didn't know Tweeter from. I'm just saying, but it wasn't about specifics. It was like, you don't possess common sense. This is never going to work.
Yeah.
It's not about. I keep saying it's not about the plugin and what somebody used. It's about common sense. Common sense will get you there.
I love it, man. Well, as always, man, I just appreciate your time, and you know, we go back a long way, bro. Think about
We
that.
do.
I've known you for quite a few years now, like way back. So I think it's been, I don't know if it's been 10 years, 15. I've known you for a long time now. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's like yesterday, but it's been a long time, you know?
Good. Thank you very much.
Well, man, blessings on everything you're doing, man. I'm looking forward to hearing that record and be checking it out. And, you know, if anybody wants to get a hold of you as the studio or to hire you as a producer or engineer, is there a place they should go? Or is there an office they should call to get a hold of your office?
No, you can hit me on my email.
Okay.
If that works for you.
Well, I won't
Either
give
on
you me out on a video. I just want to know if you could call somewhere to reach you, or like if you have a producer or someone that handles your affairs for you, they'd reach
No,
out
I have
to
a
you.
manager, but it's funny. I basically deflect to them. I kind of talk to people first to decide. Sometimes, you know, you're not compatible with certain product and artists, and why would both of us waste each other's time and waste each other's money?
True
When,
that.
you know, I love what you do. I see a vision for what you're doing, or I don't really see how I can help this. It sounds great already. You don't need
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Or you're in a place that I don't understand. I don't think I can help you. And these are all very fair assessments. I mean, I do. Are they not?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can find me on jimmydouglas.com.
There you go. That's what I need to know. That's what
And,
I'll tell him. JimmyDouglas.com. That's the fastest way to get a hold of him. And everybody out there, I hope you've enjoyed this segment. It has been one of the greats. This senator has been here. He has been in the building. So let's close this up, man. We appreciate you guys stopping by to see the segment. If you have any questions, of course, or comments, please look at them and leave them below. We appreciate you being part of the Chasing the Impossible family. See you next time on the segment. Have a great one.